So I'm not good at introducing myself, so I also did not be very good at introducing my panelists. So I'll give you the floor. Kindly, Moses.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. What a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invite. Looking forward to the conversation. My name is Moses Okundi. I've been in technology for 2 decades now, and right now I am CIO at Absa Bank Kenya. Previously I worked in Ghana, in Vodafone Ghana, where I was the CIO in Vodafone Ghana. Prior to that I worked in Safaricom, and I did various roles in Safaricom. I'm passionate about tech, passionate about what it can do to society, empower people. For me, tech is like the great equalizer. It's all about how you use it, what you know, and anyone can realize their dreams or fulfill that ambitious target that they have through tech. So pleasure to be here once again, and thank you, Kevin.
Okay, Moses, you've forgotten something. Guys, Moses Okundi is the CIO, the current CIO of the year. A round of applause for him, please. I don't know why you forget.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, that's why I said this is the panel of the OGs, the original OGs. Peter?
I'm very excited to be with the panelists of OGs. So I'm learning a lot, and the speaker who just talked about data protection has really realized how we are missing so much in the startup ecosystem, and probably there's a lot of things I want to do after this when it comes to data. So I deal with SMEs. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 5HR. It's a cloud payroll and HR platform, and for us we're not just a payroll and HR platform. We're building an ecosystem that will plug in with banks, insurance players, BNPL, and so much more to empower employee wellness. So I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to having this wonderful conversation.
Okay, I'll take you to our other panelists who are joining us from home. I believe it's home or their offices, but not in Kenya. These are the OGs, guys. I'll start with Edgar.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Edgar Okioga. I'm the head of digital and business solutions for BAT Nigeria. I've been here for a year now, and previously head of digital and business solutions for Kenya. Exciting to be here, happy to share what I know, and I'm really excited by the fact that we're all looking at data very, very seriously. And from the previous speakers, just a conversation about data and privacy impact assessment, that's something in BAT we take very, very seriously. So I'm really glad that this is something topical and it's front of mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Edgar. Over to you, Lee.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry that I couldn't be with you in Kenya. I love Kenya, so always look for an excuse to make a trip down there. But I'm Lee Sais. I lead the cloud technology for our cloud providers business in sub-Saharan Africa. So typically work with cloud providers in sub-Saharan Africa around building out the cloud-hosted business, the productization, the go-to-market, the solutioning architecture of those platforms. So hopefully can take that knowledge and share some thoughts with you guys today. Thanks.
Okay, now, and I'll start with what Lee has talked about, hybrid cloud architectures. This is one of the innovations that we are seeing being brought into cloud computing. And I'll start with you, Moses. You have worked with a wide area network, software-defined wide area network at Absa. So maybe how will you define hybrid cloud architecture? What's a hybrid cloud architecture, and what is the difference that it's bringing to cloud computing?
Yeah, I think. Hello. Okay. It's a good question, and thank you for that. Perhaps it's useful to take a step back. Before cloud, how did we used to deploy our various technology workloads or our various applications? So you have your standalone server. If you have a better budget, you can have those so-called engineered systems. which to some extent, can also be classified as like a private cloud. And what typically happens is that you have a cost, a significant capital expenditure cost that you have to fork out in order to enjoy those services, in order to deploy your application, procure the server, deploy your application in the server, run it, connectivity, and the like. But what cloud has presented us is that your go-to-market, or the pace at which you can light up an application or a capability, is much faster, because you don't have to go through that initial step of having to procure that standalone hardware. So, and then you have the scenario where, for whatever reason, and I know we talked about data privacy earlier and data sovereignty, you might find that there are certain aspects of data that policy-wise you cannot ship to a public cloud or beyond the country's borders. So in those instances, it makes sense immediately to have an instance locally. Now, you can develop a cloud, a private cloud, and then there are other applications that you can ship to a public cloud. So how you orchestrate what goes to the public cloud and what remains within your private environment, then essentially you've achieved what you call a hybrid cloud. So that's with regards to the definition of it. The usefulness, of course, is the speed of deployment, the ease of management. There's a cost aspect as well, but you have to be careful in the sense that whatever applications that you pick, they need to be relevant for the cloud. And I think as we converse, we'll get deeper into it. But for hybrid definition, I think that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, you've all talked about now the cost part of it, because this is something that as an organization you'll have to invest a lot into bringing in this technology to, and even to convince your CEO and your CFO to invest. So maybe Peter, if you could tell us, if you want to invest into a hybrid cloud architecture, be it a broadband connection or a wide area network, how would you go about to explain it to other people, to your CEO, to your CFOs, to see value in this?
Okay. From my perspective, hybrid basically is an implementation approach that takes into consideration both public and private cloud. And of course, when I'm talking about public cloud, is vendors like Amazon, Azure, and so on and so forth. So for private cloud, it could be anything within your house, via one bedroom. That's what private cloud is. And of course, from my perspective, what you try to do is, and what we want to do in the future is, because of our architecture. So DHL is a multi-tenant application that have different tenants. So the scenario that would be in our situation is, we want to launch in a different country like Nigeria, but now Nigeria have different data laws. Okay. Now, based on the architecture, we can be able to deploy one of our application or an instance of the application locally in Nigeria, and then have the same replica of application in the public cloud. So that gives us an advantage. Again, if you look at enterprise, something like a bank, we all have bank accounts, and you know what happens on a Friday evening. Probably tomorrow when you are trying to call your bros, you want to hang out, but of course the systems are down. Why? Because of huge traffic. So what normally happens is probably the local on-premise servers cannot handle the load. So this kind of architecture hybrid can allow you to migrate some of the traffic to public, because you see, when it comes to public, you can be able to scale on demand, what we call auto-scaling. So of course that gives you so much benefit in terms of customer experience. I as a customer, sometimes I don't understand why a big bank have to have such kind of a challenge, when you can easily take advantage of a public cloud and scale some of the services that are less sensitive and that will less expose your data to threats and such kind of things.
Okay, thank you. And I think I'll pose also the same question to Lee. How do you ensure value in investing in these innovations in cloud computing? How do you ensure that there will be value and there will be return for what you have invested in? I think Lee is on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you can.
You all hear me now? Okay. So it's an interesting conversation because at the end of the day, hybrid cloud is not something you plan to do. It's something that happened organically as your organization basically evolved into this digitization era. The fact of the matter is whatever you have on-prem or in a private cloud environment is not going to go away. So those investments that you mentioned earlier around putting down hardware, managing a platform inside a privatized type architecture is not going away. It's a similar concept to the fact that people had mainframes, organizations had mainframes. There's databases that ran on their types of systems of record applications that are not going to change. So public cloud brings in a lot of advantages when it comes to the way you develop applications, modernized ways of doing so. But not all applications are fit for purpose to move into that environment. So it's an analysis that you need to do where you look at the existing applications that's going to be there for many years to come. How do you continue running those optimally in the platform that you've made those investments in, and new projects where you see fit to take advantage of things like auto-scaling or to take advantage of rapid deployment cycles and so on. That's where a public cloud would come into play. Now, unfortunately, that creates two operating models. You have an on-prem private cloud that requires a certain way of doing networking, doing security, managing data, but those can't necessarily be repeated in the way you consume a public cloud. So things like the data and access, the data destruction processes, all of those things needs to be thought of differently when it comes to a hybrid environment. So a lot of the time we see that people need to change, processes need to change, technologies need to be adopted in order to steer a new management way of getting another endpoint other than your private cloud to be managed. So it's really something that needs to be considered. It is different, things need to change, or be used like centers of excellence and so on that needs to be developed in order to manage this tightly. Because it is a reality and it's a reality to stay. It's not something that's going to change in the next couple of years. It's something that's going to be there for many years to come. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Lee. Thanks. Now, over to you. Now, Edgar, we've talked about now the hybrid environment where you have your public cloud environment and your private environment as well. But doesn't this pose a security challenge? So Edgar, if you could talk about the challenges of investing in now the hybrid cloud environment and how we can mitigate these challenges.
It's a good question. And the first thing really is coming up with a business strategy of cloud and digital transformation. And some of the challenges that are faced are the complexity, like what he has just mentioned. What are we going to store on the cloud? What are we going to store on-prem? These have to be business-driven conversations. It starts with why and what we want to achieve. And thereafter coming up with the architecture, the infrastructure, and then creating MVPs, minimum viable products, to see does it work. In my example, and this is where I work in a manufacturing instance, we can't put all our data on the cloud because of speed. Our machines need rapid information from one machine to another in order for us to continuously produce products of high quality that meet the consumer requirements. The latency it takes for data to be transmitted from the factory all the way to the cloud and back again for decision support is too much. Therefore, some of our systems must be on-prem. However, on the other end, we do have a customer-facing end where we do inventory using image analysis. Now, this is no requirement to have instantaneous data. So we can take the image, throw it to a cloud server where image analysis is done and the results are shipped back. So it's these kind of decisions that need to be taken place. So what are the challenges? Complexities I've mentioned. The other is data sovereignty. You cannot put all the data on the cloud, specifically if it has some regulatory controls around it. So data sovereignty is something many African countries are driving. Africans want our data to be in Africa. Our data needs to be processed in Africa. Another thing is about consent. You and I can actually decline consent to our data is going to be processed elsewhere. So that's something else that we need to take care of. That creates complexity in terms of people and knowledge and all that. The other item is about cybersecurity and cyber hacks. The moment we connect anything to the internet, we're open game, which means we need to start having new mechanics and new machinery on our network to detect patterns, port address protocol changes and say, hey, something is going on, which means we need another layer of governance about the applications that we're putting on our network, the kind of data we're analyzing, the kind of systems we're integrating, APIs that we're connecting to. So all these complexities come in. Solution and enterprise cloud architecture. These are guardrails and principles that define how the cloud will be approached. Another solution and process is ensuring that the technology team are trained and go through very specific training on cloud technology. They're trained on digital transformation and the benefits of cloud. You just can't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm porting everything to the cloud. Take baby steps. Understand the implications. Understand the nuances of the cloud. And of course, costs. We need multi-year budgets to manage cloud infrastructure. It is not cheap. Which means as you grow, you need to understand who are the users and the tenants that are using these services and manage them appropriately. In a nutshell, going cloud is the right thing to do as part of digital transformation. It is right for SMEs, and especially like the lady who asked about organizations that are just growing. It is the right thing to do because you're sharing infrastructure. It makes it cheaper. You're going to use systems already there. And for large corporations as like and BAT, definitely the cloud is defining a lot of accelerated approaches to technology. Hope that gives an answer.
Yeah, thanks, Edgar. And I think, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I think they raised pertinent issues, and I agree totally. I just want to add that, of course, it will be driven by the strategy. Because from the strategy, you're sure that this is what we need to do in order to unlock or realize this business value. And it's not just a technology conversation, it's a conversation across the entire organization. And then Lee touched on a critical point as well. You can't just wake up and say, we're shipping everything to the cloud. I think, we need to move from the thought that cloud is cheap. Cloud is not cheap. It's how you use it. So you have to analyze your suite of applications and then, pick and choose which ones are cloud ready, which ones are not. And that's not to say that the ones that are cloud ready, not ready, need to be adjusted to become cloud ready. That's the point at which you can take that call to, knock them out or just retire and decommission them so that you have a nice, clean environment. But additionally, what I wanted to add was governance. I think it's critical to have a governance process around cloud adoption. And what you'll struggle with when you go to your finance colleagues to put up a business case for cloud, sometimes it's not necessarily returning revenue in the first year or the second year. But you need to craft your business case to the extent that you show the agility that operating in the cloud will give you as a business, i.e. deploying applications faster. Security. I personally find, and I might differ with one of my colleagues there, the security within the cloud is unmatched. I don't think you can have better security in a public cloud than you do on-prem. So, because within a public cloud, as long as you've procured and engaged well, and then you talk about serverless computing and all, so you don't have the need to keep on patching, keep on creating security measures. If you need to buy a web application firewall to protect your web assets, then you have that flexibility as well. So yes, definitely. A holistic strategy, a governance that guides the multi-year cloud adoption, and then the people aspect as well. Remember, people, processes, platforms. ensure that the people are catered for within that multi-year process to ensure that their knowledge and capability goes up. But I think the only thing I've talked about there is around the large enterprise. Maybe for the SMEs or the startups, I think it's a good way to really take off, to try the cloud. And sometimes the benefit that you can get as a startup is even apply for cloud credits, so that you can go and play with it, get an opportunity before you start incurring cost. And if you tune your code and your application well, then you should be able to also manage costs. And these large hyperscale providers like your Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they actually support the startup ecosystem around that space.
Thank you. And we've talked about startups and how startups also we all need the cloud. And it's something that it's the future, and it's the future of computing. It has revolutionized computing. So I'll take this to Peter. How do you think organizations, say SMEs, what do they need to do to prepare or to take advantage of these cloud computing innovations?
I think generally is, first of all, know your needs, do an assessment, and know what is important for your business. For example, for us, we offer SaaS. So I think it's important to mention that we offer SaaS. So for us, we are customers of infrastructure as a service. So initially, from the beginning, as a founder, I knew that I would need to scale to some extent. So I knew I would not work with on-premise. So currently, our infrastructure is on cloud entirely. So first of all, know your needs, and then know the cost implication of what you're going to consume. And also what you're offering. Are you offering machine learning so that you can be able to identify what services will you be needing from the cloud? Otherwise, what normally happens is you might even have credits, but at the end of the day, you're using so many services that are not even making sense. For example, when you're starting out, you don't even have the data to do ML. So you might want to be very keen on the particular service you're looking at. And then something else is have a cloud native mindset. So I know if you are a developer here, you know the situation whereby we normally say it was working in my machine. You know, so you're telling your CTO, but it is what was working in my machine. So there might be some spirit along the way. So there is a new concept, or rather a new technology which one of the speakers mentioned about orchestration, and that is used to do containerization, so that now even if you are running different clouds, your application can be portable. Whether you are doing on-premise, whether you are doing your local machine, whether you are doing from vendor A to vendor B. So if you use something like Docker or Kubernetes, so you realize that your application can run purely from anywhere and you can be able to scale.
All right. And I think also I'll ask Lee and Edgar. Now, in terms of a big corporation, what do they need, a big organization, let's say, what do they need to do to take advantage of these innovations? It's not just hybrid cloud, because Moses has talked about serverless computing, which is also integrated to the cloud. And we also have a lot of AI and ML use, especially in 2023. A lot of people are going into AI. So what does a big organization need to do to prepare and to really take in these new innovations in the cloud space? I'll start with Lee.
So at the end of the day, I think quite a few panelists mentioned it's about what benefit does whatever you're doing in the cloud provide to the business. And I think we've seen this evolution where the large enterprises at a time invested in assets, and I think assets showed wealth or showed success in organizations. So we've seen a lot of large enterprises investing in things like data centers, servers, and so on to run their own infrastructure. But that narrative has changed when digitization really comes into play. For asset management like data centers, servers, and so on, it's not really a lot of large organizations' businesses. So we've seen vendors come into the market or partners come into the market that tries to take those aspects and that management aspects away from a lot of large enterprises so they can focus on what they do well. So it started out with vendors providing things like infrastructure as a service. So instead of building your own data center, investing in your own hardware, consume it from a cloud provider. And that makes sense where you want to move your budgets from really CapExing solutions to more an OpEx approach for infrastructure. And it's evolved to a state now where things like you mentioned, serverless computing or functions as a services, it goes on top of that, where it's expanded to more than just the infrastructure. The management of what actually goes underneath an application that gets developed. So things like the management of a virtual machine, the management of applications or the runtimes on top of that, those type of things is starting to be delivered as a service as well. So for large enterprises, it's about weighing the pros and cons of doing something yourself versus actually consuming it as a service from somebody else. And that goes far beyond just infrastructure. It moves into actually looking at the bottom layer as abstract and consuming it as a serverless type function. So even though there's still servers at the back, the consumption and the benefit to large enterprises is the fact that it would be serverless, and all they'll focus on is the functions of applications they'll develop, how that gets pushed into production, and how it actually gets consumed or communicates to multiple endpoints in order for it to be consumed. So it comes back to large enterprises really identifying what is your business, what are you doing, is things like managing infrastructure, managing services part of your business, or do you want to focus on other things and take advantage of the modernized services that cloud provides? And a lot of the time it's going to be a best of both worlds. There's certain applications that will go natively to cloud where you don't want to manage the back end. There's unfortunately certain situations where you're not going to get rid of certain applications, so you're going to have it on-prem as well.
Thank you.
To your second point around artificial intelligence and machine learning, I'll quickly just answer on that. Data is being discussed throughout this conference quite extensively, and the power of data is immense. So the fact that data is there and data is being generated at a rapid scale means things can be used out of that data to improve certain processes, improve certain applications, improve certain things that needs to happen in organizations. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, using that data constructs is something that we're going to see far into the future. It really optimizes the way things are built and how enterprises consume those applications that get built as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. I'll pose the same question to Edgar in terms of big organizations, what they need to do to prepare. And while Edgar responds to that question, if we have any questions in the room, there's the mic there and the mic there. You can just walk up to there. I'll see you, and you'll have a chance to ask your question after Edgar gives his comment. So,
cool. So let's through this. So the first thing is getting that cloud readiness assessment. Where are we? Where do you want to go? Combined with strategy. That's really important because that determines what kind of budgets, what kind of capabilities that you'll have in the business. And some of the key questions that as digital experts we need to ask ourselves, how do we want to scale up and scale up and out our solutions? What kind of enterprise data standards do we want to have? How are we going to look at security? And security is very important. That's something that's been spoken about today a lot. What kind of architectures shall we have? What kind of governance bodies should we put in place in order to adopt applications that are cloud native or those that are hybrid? And of course, look at new APIs or microservices that we're going to be embedding. So that strategy is really, really important. A fundamental part that cannot be skipped is capability building. And Lee has mentioned that. We need to train our people in the technology and also in the business. The cloud presents us enormous learning capabilities. It provides us capabilities that we might not have in-house, but because they've already been built on cloud services, we can reuse. It goes without saying that as technology leaders, we need to invest in skills like data science, invest in skills like machine learning and such, in agile ways of working, and also innovation. And that's really important for us. And once we put these learning capabilities, is really to deploy the clouds in stages, identify and account for the benefits. We cannot just deploy technology for the sake of technology. We must see the ripple effect. As we deploy technologies, what's happening to our top line? What's happening to our bottom line? What's happening to our regulatory risk posture? These are tangible things that we need to continuously engage the board, engage the leadership, internally, externally, on what the benefits are. Then as we continue is to monitor. And that's something that I believe all big corporates need to do. So that's kind of like a blitz through on what large corporations and also the small SMEs need to look into.
All right, thanks, Edgar. Any questions from the room? Is that a question or you're just... She isn't even here.
I think before we get the last question, there's one really interesting concept that is coming up, and I think that this might change the whole game, which we are calling edge computing. And I think one of the speakers mentioned that within their ecosystem, there are particular data they cannot store on cloud because of the speed at which that data needs to be accessed. Okay? So basically, edge computing allows you to access data and process data near the data source. So say, for example, you even have a watch, or you're driving a smart vehicle. So any delay in transmitting that data to process that data will be catastrophic. Okay, so that data needs to be accessed close to the data source, and that's why you have service providers coming up with what we call local zones. And allow me to mention Amazon brought in Amazon local zones in Kenya. Why? Because they want you guys to have the best customer experience, because the time it will take that data to be accessed from a region in South Africa or a region in Virginia would be much less than when it's in Kenya. So that will really change the whole game. And particularly what we're trying to do in our case is, because most of our customers are in Kenya and in Africa at large, so we are going to have an approach whereby some of this data is stored locally in Kenya, but some are stored in other regions.
Okay, so I think if we don't have any questions, I'll start with Edgar, because our time is basically up. So I'll give you 1 minute just to give your parting shot and your advice to the tech gurus here today.
So my parting shot is, do invest in the cloud, and do invest in machine learning capabilities available in the cloud. Digital transformation is accelerated by using cloud. The infrastructure is there. Exploit it. Thank you.
Thanks, Edgar. Short and sweet. Lee?
Yeah, I think just a parting thought from my end is that cloud is not a destination. It's a strategy, and cloud doesn't necessarily, the word cloud is being used broadly. There's many types of clouds, there's many different benefits that you get from it. So take it as a strategy and pick what works best for your business. It's not a one vendor fits all. Every vendor has a place, and that's why we're relevant in the market. So choose what works for your business best and place where it needs to be based on your strategy.
All right, thanks. Moses?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so cloud, I think you can't ignore it. The capabilities and the opportunities that exist in the cloud, and the technologies that you can have access to in the cloud. We talked about AI, ML, that you can unleash within the cloud. Don't let the opportunity pass you by, but of course, don't jump into it blindly. Have a strategy that's driven by the value that you seek, so that you can pick and choose what works for you, and you don't run up into huge costs that you cannot sustain. So please definitely explore the cloud if you haven't. If you have, make sure you have checkpoints for governance, review. Are you still aligned to the strategy? Are you adjusting accordingly? And by all means, if something is not working well for you in the cloud, pull it out. Bring it back on premise. It's not that once you're in the cloud, you're stuck there and you have to run up the costs. So maintain that flexibility and agility as you execute. Thank you.
Thanks. Peter?
I think for me is be open and take cloud as an investment, not an expense. Because sometimes as leaders, you're like, okay, let's cut cost on cloud. So if you do that, you lose out on the benefits. Because you see, if you want to be competitive, you have to have the customers in mind. And if I'm a customer, I have to come to where you are. I think I don't want that as a customer. I want a very good experience. So be open and adapt technology as early as now.
Thank you. My parting shot will be to thank the both of you for making time to be with us here today. And also Edgar and Lee, thank you. Thanks a lot. I know you guys are having meetings and you are working over there. They don't know that there's a big event here, and you made time to be here. We really appreciate it. And thanks everyone also for giving us your time.